Rain poured relentlessly over Cedar Creek, drumming against the hood of Sergeant Daniel Carter's patrol car. His thoughts were clouded by an uneasy feeling he couldn't shake. Beside him, Leo, his loyal K-9 partner, sat alert. They had been through everything together, countless missions, life-or-death situations, but something about this night felt wrong. The police radio crackled suddenly. All units, suspects heavily armed and barricaded inside the old industrial complex. Approach with caution. Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel and glanced at Leo. All right, buddy, we've got this. Like always, they arrived at the scene to find the area eerily quiet. The abandoned factory loomed like a forgotten giant, its rusty walls reflecting the flashing red and blue lights. The wind howled through broken windows. It was too quiet, too tense. Daniel and Leo advanced cautiously. Then, without warning, a barrage of gunfire shattered the silence. Daniel's instincts kicked in immediately. Take cover, he yelled into the radio. Leo darted forward, his body moving in perfect sync with Daniel's commands. But in the chaos, it happened. A single gunshot rang out, distinct and sharp. Daniel saw it all unfold in a horrific instant. Leo collapsing onto the wet ground. No, Leo! Daniel sprinted to his fallen partner. The dog lay on his side, panting, his fur stained with blood. Daniel knelt beside him, his hands shaking. Stay with me, buddy. Don't you give up on me now. Colleagues provided cover as Daniel carried Leo back to the patrol car. He drove like a man possessed, the tires screeching as he sped through empty streets. You're gonna be okay, Leo. I've got you. You saved me so many times. Now it's my turn. Leo's breathing was shallow, his eyes half closed. Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke to him, trying to keep him conscious. The rain pounded harder. Finally, they reached the veterinary hospital. Medics rushed Leo inside, leaving Daniel standing alone in the rain-soaked parking lot. His heart pounded in his chest. Memories of every mission with Leo flashed through his mind. How the dog had always been there, his protector and best friend. Hours passed. The waiting room clock ticked mercilessly, each second dragging into an eternity. Finally, the veterinarian appeared with a somber expression. Leo's alive, but it's critical. He'll need extensive rehabilitation, and we'll have to transfer him to a facility out of town. Daniel's world seemed to collapse in that moment. He knew it was necessary, but the thought of being separated from Leo felt unbearable. The next day, at the transfer site, he knelt beside his partner one last time. You'll get better, and when you do, I'll be here. Promise. Leo's eyes met his, a spark of recognition in their depths. And then he was gone. Days turned into weeks, but the absence of Leo haunted Daniel at every turn. Every patrol, every street corner, felt emptier. What he didn't know was that fate had already set in motion an event that would change everything. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what will happen to Leo and Daniel. This was just the beginning of an emotional story full of courage and twists. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episodes. Their journey is just beginning. The days dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Daniel Carter carried the weight of Leo's absence everywhere he went. The once familiar rhythm of patrols felt off, like a melody missing its most crucial note. There were moments when he instinctively turned his head, expecting to see the sharp, alert gaze of his partner beside him. But all he was met with was an unsettling emptiness. At the precinct, Officer Jenny Ross noticed the strain etched into Daniel's face. "Rough night?" she asked gently. "They're all rough now," Daniel replied, shaking his head. "It's too damn quiet out there without him." Jenny offered a small, encouraging smile. "Leo's tough. He'll pull through. You know that." Later that night, Daniel sat in his dimly lit apartment. On a shelf near the door was a photo of him and Leo, taken on the day they completed their first mission. Leo, with his ears perked and tongue hanging out, looked proud and happy. Daniel chuckled softly, remembering the beginning of their journey. He had chosen Leo because of the calm, knowing look in the dog's eyes. It was a look that promised trust and loyalty, qualities Leo had proven time and time again. The silence pressed down on him harder than ever. Needing some kind of reassurance, Daniel picked up his phone and called the rehabilitation center. After a few moments, the receptionist answered. Cedar Creek Animal Rehabilitation. How can I help? This is Sergeant Daniel Carter. I'm checking on Leo. After a brief pause, she replied, Leo is stable. He's responding well to treatment. Daniel let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The update eased some of his worry, but only a little. The truth was, he missed more than just Leo's presence during operations. He missed the quiet companionship, the way the dog always seemed to understand him without a word. Early the next morning, his phone buzzed. It was a message from the center. Leo is making great progress. You might want to visit soon. Hope reignited in Daniel's chest. He wasted no time, grabbing his keys and heading out the door. As he drove, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirled within him. After everything they'd been through, he wondered if Leo would still remember him. The answer, he would soon discover, would be more emotional than he could have ever prepared for. The drive to the rehabilitation center was long, but Daniel barely noticed the passing scenery. His mind raced with thoughts of Leo. Would he still have that same spark in his eyes? Would he be healthy enough to recognize him? The possibilities tugged at his emotions, making his grip on the steering wheel tighten. He hadn't felt this kind of nervous anticipation in years. When he arrived, the center was quiet, surrounded by trees that swayed gently in the wind. A staff member greeted him at the entrance. Sergeant Carter? You're here to see Leo? She asked with a warm smile. Yeah. How's he doing? Daniel's voice was steady, though his heart pounded. He's been doing great. He's more active and responsive every day. He'll be thrilled to see you. Daniel was led down a hallway to a large, enclosed recovery yard. Through the glass, he saw a group of dogs in training exercises, but his eyes immediately locked onto one figure near the far fence. It was Leo. His coat gleamed in the sunlight, but Daniel could see the faint scar along his side where the bullet had struck. Leo stood quietly, watching the other dogs, his posture calm and composed, just like the day they had first met. The handler opened the gate, and Daniel stepped inside. Leo's ears twitched at the sound of the door, and slowly, he turned his head. For a moment, there was stillness. Then recognition sparked in the dog's eyes. His tail began to wag cautiously at first, then faster as he took a few hesitant steps toward Daniel. Hey, buddy, it's me, Daniel said softly, his voice catching in his throat. Leo's hesitation melted away, and in a flash he ran toward Daniel. The impact of Leo's weight nearly knocked him over as the dog pressed his head against Daniel's chest. Daniel laughed, tears welling in his eyes as he wrapped his arms around his partner. You didn't forget me, did you? The staff watched from a distance, clearly moved by the reunion. Leo let out a soft whine, nuzzling Daniel as if to say everything would be all right now. For the first time in months, the crushing weight on Daniel's heart began to lift. They were together again, but both knew the road to recovery wasn't over yet. There were still challenges ahead, challenges they would face as a team like always. The days following their reunion were filled with cautious optimism. Daniel made frequent visits to the rehabilitation center, each time witnessing small but important signs of Leo's recovery. The once weary dog now walked with greater strength, his movements becoming more fluid and confident. Yet, Daniel knew they both carried invisible wounds. Leo's body was healing, but his spirit had also been tested, and Daniel's own fears still lingered. During one visit, the center's lead therapist, Dr. Everett, approached Daniel while observing Leo during an obstacle course. He's making impressive progress, Everett remarked. Daniel nodded but kept his eyes on Leo. Yeah, but do you think he'll be ready for duty again? Everett hesitated before answering. It's hard to say. Physically, he's improving quickly, but trauma can take longer to heal. You'll know when he's ready. Just be patient with him. And yourself. Later that afternoon, Daniel and Leo walked together along the center's wooded trails. It was a peaceful break from the intensity of their usual routines. Daniel spoke softly as they moved, more to himself than to Leo. "I was scared, you know? That night, I thought I lost you, and I didn't know how to move forward without you." Leo glanced up at him with those familiar, calm eyes. No words were needed. The bond between them didn't rely on language. As the weeks passed, the rehabilitation exercises became more challenging. Leo was tasked with tracking scents, navigating obstacles, and responding to commands under stressful conditions. Daniel saw flashes of the old Leo return. The dog's keen intelligence and unmatched focus resurfaced with each success. But there were moments when Leo hesitated, as if shadows of that fateful night still haunted him. One day, during a training session, Leo froze mid-task, his ears flattening against his head. He didn't respond to Daniel's command, something that rarely happened before the injury. Daniel walked over slowly, kneeling beside him. "Hey, it's all right. You're safe now," he murmured, gently stroking Leo's fur. After a moment, Leo relaxed and resumed the task, but Daniel knew they still had work to do. The center staff noticed the progress and arranged a trial assessment for Leo to determine if he could fully return to active duty. It was scheduled for the following week. The news filled Daniel with a mix of excitement and apprehension. He wanted Leo back on the force, but more than anything, he wanted his partner to be ready, physically and mentally. Together, they would face this next challenge head-on. The day of Leo's assessment arrived quicker than Daniel expected. He stood at the edge of the training field, nerves buzzing like static in the air. This wasn't just about Leo completing the exercises. It was about seeing if they still had that unbreakable connection, the trust that made them an unstoppable team. He watched as staff prepared the course, scent trails, obstacle jumps, and a series of high-stress simulations designed to test Leo's physical and mental limits. Dr. Everett approached with a clipboard. "You both ready?" he asked. Daniel nodded, though his throat felt dry. "As ready as we'll ever be." He turned to Leo, who sat calmly at his side, ears perked and tail swishing lightly. Daniel knelt down and whispered, "This is our moment, buddy. Let's show them what we've got." The first task involved tracking a hidden decoy through a maze of equipment. Leo sniffed the air, his body going tense as he caught the scent. With a command from Daniel, he took off, weaving through the obstacles with precision. Daniel jogged behind, heart racing. Watching Leo work was like seeing a piece of himself in motion. Fluid, focused, unstoppable. Within minutes, Leo found the target and barked, signaling success. But the next challenge was different. A loud, sudden burst from a simulated gunshot echoed across the field. Leo froze. Daniel saw it immediately, the flash of fear in his partner's eyes. Memories of that terrible night clawed their way to the surface. Daniel stepped forward cautiously. "Leo, it's okay. I'm here." He spoke in a steady, calming tone, grounding both himself and Leo. Slowly, the dog shook off the hesitation and resumed his position. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As the test continued, Leo faced more triggers. Sudden noises, unexpected commands, distractions, but he pushed through each one with growing confidence. The final task required Leo to jump a high barrier and retrieve a training item on the other side. Daniel watched intently as Leo sprinted toward the barrier. He hesitated for a moment at the base, then, with a burst of energy, leapt over it and completed the task. Daniel couldn't hold back a grin. When the assessment ended, Dr. Everett walked over, scribbling notes. "He passed," Everett said with a smile. "It wasn't flawless, but he's more than ready to return to active duty." Daniel crouched down beside Leo, ruffling the dog's fur. "You did it, partner. We did it." Leo responded with a low, contented bark, as if to say, "Of course we did." Daniel knew there would still be challenges ahead, but in that moment, everything felt right again. They were finally back where they belonged, together and stronger than ever. What did you think of this pivotal moment for Daniel and Leo? Do you believe they'll overcome all the challenges ahead together? Share your thoughts and expectations about the rest of this emotional journey in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. A week after passing the assessment, Leo was officially cleared for duty. Word spread quickly through the precinct. and Daniel was met with congratulations from fellow officers as he entered the station with his partner. Leo walked confidently by his side, his eyes scanning the room, tail wagging gently as if he understood the significance of the moment. "There's the legend himself," Officer Jenny Ross called out, walking over to greet them. She knelt and gave Leo a pat on the head. "Good to see you back where you belong, big guy," she said with a grin. Daniel chuckled. "Feels good to have him back. Let's just hope we're not too rusty out there." Jenny shook her head. "You too? Rusty?" "Yeah, right." Later that afternoon, Daniel and Leo received their first call. A burglary in progress at a warehouse on the outskirts of Cedar Creek. The adrenaline hit almost instantly. As Daniel drove, he glanced at Leo in the rearview mirror. "Looks like it's time to show them what we can do." "Huh?" he said. Leo's ears perked up, his body shifting forward in anticipation. It was the same energy Daniel had missed. The feeling that, no matter the danger ahead, they would face it together. When they arrived on the scene, officers had already secured the perimeter. A sergeant briefed Daniel quickly. "We've got 2 suspects inside, possibly armed. They're moving through the loading area, but we haven't been able to corner them yet." Daniel nodded and gave Leo a hand signal. Instantly, the dog's demeanor changed, ears alert, posture rigid. He was ready. "All right, let's move," Daniel ordered. They entered the dimly lit warehouse, the air thick with the smell of metal and dust. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Leo led the way, his nose close to the ground as he tracked the scent trail. Daniel followed closely, his senses heightened. Suddenly, Leo froze, his body tense. He gave a low, warning growl. Someone was nearby. Moments later, one of the suspects made a break for it, sprinting toward a side exit. "Go, Leo," Daniel commanded. Leo shot forward like a bolt of lightning, intercepting the man before he could reach the door. With precision, Leo blocked his path, barking loudly. The suspect raised his hands, frozen in fear. All right, I give up," he shouted. The situation was quickly brought under control. As the officers secured the suspects, Daniel walked over to Leo, who stood proudly at his side. "That's my boy," Daniel said, crouching to give Leo an affectionate pat. The dog's eyes sparkled with triumph. Back at the station, Daniel reflected on how far they had come. They had faced fear, pain, and uncertainty, but here they were, partners once more. No challenge seemed too great now. As long as they had each other, they would keep pushing forward, stronger than ever. Despite their successful return to duty, Daniel couldn't shake the lingering tension that crept in during quiet moments. Leo seemed fine most of the time, focused, eager, and responsive, but there were still moments when Daniel noticed subtle signs. A sudden loud noise or an unfamiliar setting would make Leo pause, his eyes darting as if expecting danger. The past hadn't fully released its grip on either of them. One night, during a routine patrol, the tension resurfaced. They responded to a call about suspicious activity near an old construction site. The area was dimly lit, with the skeletal frames of half-finished buildings looming like ghosts in the dark. Daniel parked the car and gave Leo the signal to follow. Together, they moved silently through the gravel paths. A loud metallic crash echoed from somewhere ahead. Instinctively, Leo flinched, ears flattening. Daniel noticed immediately and knelt beside him. "Hey, you're safe. We've got this," Daniel whispered gently. Leo hesitated but eventually refocused. They continued forward, Daniel keeping a hand near his partner to offer silent reassurance. The connection between them was a fragile thread they both needed to protect. As they advanced deeper into the site, movement caught Daniel's eye. 2 figures were attempting to break into a storage unit. He radioed for backup but knew they had to act quickly. "Leo, stay with me," he whispered. With a hand signal, Leo moved into position. Daniel approached cautiously, his voice calm but authoritative. "Police, stop where you are." One of the suspects froze, but the other ran, disappearing into the maze of scaffolding and debris. Without hesitation, Daniel and Leo pursued him. The suspect ducked and weaved through narrow corridors, knocking over crates in an attempt to slow them down. At one point, he kicked a metal pipe, sending it clattering to the ground. The sound echoed like a gunshot, and Leo stopped abruptly, panting hard. Daniel froze too, his heart racing. For a moment, he feared Leo might shut down. But then, the dog shook his head, refocusing with a renewed intensity. "Good boy. Let's finish this," Daniel encouraged. Leo lunged forward, tracking the suspect's path with precision. Minutes later, they cornered him near a dead end. The suspect stumbled, realizing there was no escape, and surrendered without a fight. As officers arrived to take him into custody, Daniel knelt beside Leo, pride swelling in his chest. "You're stronger than you think, partner." Leo wagged his tail, his eyes steady and calm. The shadows of the past hadn't disappeared, but together, they were learning to overcome them, one step at a time. For the next few weeks, Daniel noticed that Leo was improving, but not without moments of difficulty. Certain situations, unexpected loud noises or chaotic environments, still triggered brief moments of hesitation. Daniel tried to stay patient, reminding himself that healing wasn't linear. Yet, deep down, he feared that Leo might never fully be the same. During a meeting with Dr. Everett at the station, Daniel voiced his concerns. "He's doing great in most situations, but sometimes he freezes," Daniel admitted. "I don't know how much more progress we can make." Everett leaned back thoughtfully. "Leo's been through trauma. That doesn't just vanish overnight. The bond between you two is his strongest anchor. Keep reinforcing that trust, and you'll see the results." Daniel nodded but remained skeptical. Trust had always been their foundation. What if that wasn't enough anymore? Their next call would put that trust to the ultimate test. A hostage situation had unfolded at a small strip mall. The suspect had barricaded himself inside a hardware store, threatening the lives of 2 employees. Daniel and Leo arrived with the tactical unit, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. The negotiator had been trying to de-escalate, but the suspect was growing more unstable. Daniel was ordered to prepare for a breach. "We'll take it slow," Daniel told Leo as they moved toward the entrance. The dog's eyes were locked on him, alert but calm. Together, they advanced through a side entrance. The store was dimly lit, aisles lined with shelves and narrow pathways. Daniel could hear muffled voices up ahead. The suspect was pacing and shouting threats. Suddenly, there was a crash from the front entrance as the tactical team made a diversion. The suspect's footsteps quickened toward their position. Daniel signaled Leo to hold position, but just as they prepared to intercept, a metal ladder was knocked over, the loud clang reverberating like a gunshot. Leo froze, his body tensing as if trapped in that nightmare from the past. Daniel's heart sank. "Leo, focus," he urged, trying to break through the fear gripping his partner. The suspect rounded the corner, spotting them both. He raised a tool as if to attack. Without thinking, Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between the man and Leo. But in that instant, something shifted. Leo snapped out of his freeze, lunging forward with controlled precision. He blocked the suspect's path and barked sharply, forcing the man to drop his weapon and surrender. After the scene was secured, Daniel crouched beside Leo, his hands resting on the dog's shoulders. "You did it, buddy. You came through," he whispered. Leo's tail wagged slowly, and Daniel could see a glimmer of pride and trust in his eyes. The breaking point had come and gone, and Leo had risen to meet it. They had taken another step forward together, stronger than before. The hostage situation had left a deep impression on Daniel. Leo had pushed through his fear and protected him, proving that their bond was unbroken. Still, Daniel couldn't stop replaying the moment Leo froze. Trauma like that didn't disappear overnight, and he knew this might continue to challenge them. Yet, for the first time, he believed they were moving in the right direction. The precinct honored their success with quiet admiration. Even officers who rarely showed emotion gave Daniel and Leo nods of respect. Jenny Ross approached them with a grin. "Word is, you two handled that like pros," she said, scratching behind Leo's ears. "We're getting there," Daniel replied with a small smile. Jenny looked at Leo, who leaned into her touch. "He's still got it. Maybe more than you realize." In the days that followed, Daniel noticed subtle but meaningful changes in Leo. He seemed more at ease during patrols, even in chaotic environments. The tension that once gripped him in moments of fear began to fade. Daniel made a habit of rewarding every small victory. A treat for passing by construction sites without pausing, extra praise for handling sudden noises with composure. Slowly, Leo's confidence was rebuilding. Their next major call came on a rainy evening. A child had gone missing near the edge of Cedar Creek's dense woods. Officers feared the child might have wandered deep into the forest, where the terrain was rugged and visibility poor. As soon as they arrived, Daniel crouched beside Leo, speaking softly. "All right, partner, we've got a little one to find. You ready?" Leo wagged his tail and sniffed the air, already catching the faint scent of the child. Daniel knew that if anyone could track the boy, it was Leo. They moved swiftly through the forest, Leo leading the way with focused determination. The rain slicked the leaves underfoot, but neither of them slowed. Minutes felt like hours as they pushed deeper into the woods, Daniel's pulse quickening with each step. Suddenly, Leo stopped, ears perked and nose twitching. He barked once and darted ahead. Daniel followed, his flashlight cutting through the dark foliage. A small figure huddled beneath a tree came into view. It was the missing child, shivering but unharmed. "It's okay. We've got you," Daniel reassured gently as he wrapped his jacket around the boy. Leo approached carefully, sniffing the child before nuzzling him for comfort. The boy giggled softly, his fear melting away. As they emerged from the forest, the boy's parents rushed forward, their faces overwhelmed with relief. Officers praised Leo for his work, but Daniel simply smiled, knowing this wasn't just about the mission. It was a moment of triumph for Leo, for both of them. They had come full circle, reclaiming their place as a team. For the first time in months, Daniel felt whole again. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, just like always. The following week, Daniel and Leo were honored at a precinct ceremony for their successful rescue of the missing child. Officers, staff, and even the local community gathered to recognize their efforts. Leo stood proudly beside Daniel, his head held high as applause echoed through the station's briefing room. Daniel patted his partner's neck. "You've earned every bit of this, buddy," he whispered, and Leo's tail wagged in response. Captain Reynolds approached with a firm handshake. "Carter, you and Leo have proven yourselves time and again. We're proud to have you both back in action," he said. Daniel smiled, humbled by the praise. "It's good to be back, sir. Leo and I wouldn't have it any other way." Reynolds gave Leo a respectful nod. "And you, Leo, you're one hell of a partner." After the ceremony, Daniel and Leo went for a quiet walk around Cedar Creek's park. The evening sun cast a golden glow over the trees, creating a calm, peaceful atmosphere. Daniel reflected on how far they had come. The trauma and uncertainty that once shadowed them had lessened, replaced by renewed trust and strength. He knew neither of them would ever forget that night, but it no longer had power over them. They had faced it and won. Sitting on a bench overlooking the park's lake, Daniel watched as families played and dogs chased each other through the grass. Leo sat beside him, alert but relaxed. It was a rare, tranquil moment, one that reminded Daniel of why he had chosen this life. "It's not always going to be easy, huh?" he said softly, stroking Leo's fur. Leo tilted his head slightly, as if agreeing in his own way. As dusk fell, Daniel received a call over the radio about a disturbance nearby. He stood and gave Leo the signal to follow. There was no hesitation, no fear. The past was behind them now. Together, they moved with purpose, ready for whatever came next. Their bond, tested by pain and uncertainty, had emerged stronger than ever. Later that night, after the situation had been resolved, Daniel stood outside his patrol car under the stars. He looked down at Leo, who gazed up at him expectantly. "We've got a lot more work to do, partner," Daniel said. Leo barked softly, his tail wagging in agreement. With renewed confidence, they drove off into the night, ready for future challenges. Whatever happened, Daniel knew one thing for certain. He and Leo would always have each other's backs. Together, they were unstoppable. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. Your support is very important for us to keep bringing you these incredible moments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.